When you're in the market for a new cell phone but aren't ready for that 2-year commitment, make Yakety Yak Wireless your first stop. Our experienced sales staff will help you choose the phone that's best for you. We carry a vast array of basic and smartphones, and at Yakety Yak, you can try it before you buy it. Looking to save some money? We sell used and unlocked phones and provide the best in iPhone repair. Come into Yakety Yak Wireless for all your mobile phone needs.
Okay, welcome to the Yakety Yak Wireless video of the iPhone 5. We're going to be unboxing it and doing a partial disassembly. I just received it this morning from Verizon. This is the box of it. It remarkably looks a lot like the iPhone 4 box. And actually what you'll find as we go along through this is that most of the stuff looks a lot like the iPhone 4. The phone is about a half an inch taller. It is no wider than the iPhone 4, and other than the change dock connector, it looks very, very similar. So first thing we're going to do is carefully peel back the cellophane. And so the cellophane's coming off now. And we're ready to open this thing up. And here's our first look at a white Verizon iPhone 5. As you can see, it looks remarkably similar to the iPhone 4. The bezel, they've polished it up and made it look very good. There's a SIM card tray. The antenna cutouts are still there. They've got white filling in them instead of the black like on the iPhone 4S. You can see the aluminum back. The volume mute buttons, power button, all look exactly the same. On the bottom, here's this new dock port connector. It is a much smaller dock port connector. I think it's built a lot better. I don't see people breaking it as easily. The rest of the box is the rest of the cool Apple stuff. A brand new set of headphones. I have not tried these out yet, but they do look hopefully better than the last set. The charge block on the iPhone 5 is exactly the same as the charge block on the iPhone 4, so you can still reuse that. It's just the cable that's different. The cable has the standard USB on one end, and then on the other end is their new connector, which is completely reversible. You can see it doesn't have any wires or anything to get bent out of shape on it. It's simply a flat spade with pin outs on it. And so it goes in like so. Straight in and straight back out. It's got a snug fit, as you can see. Straight in and straight out. Completely reversible. And in doing so, I bumped the power button on the iPhone 5. Holding it, compared to holding other phones, currently I'm using a Galaxy S3, it just feels tiny. It feels so small. It actually even almost feels smaller than the iPhone 4 because it's so much skinnier. Everyone I've handed this phone to now feels like it should be about a half an inch wider. It just feels too narrow and too tall. Okay, that's the unboxing. We're going to get to the fun part now, which I'm actually going to do a partial disassembly because our main business is repairing these things, and I need to see kind of what's involved. So you start off with two pentalobe. So hang on. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the SIM card tray. And you can see that's a little Verizon micro SIM, so it still uses micro SIMs. The screws on the bottom are pentalobe screws, same as in the later edition 4s and 4Ss. We're going to go ahead and unscrew this. Now I've already seen, I think iFixit showed the fact that you need to use a suction cup to get the screen off. And you'll see me use a suction cup here, and then go to my industrial sized suction cup because this screen is in here tight. It's pressure fit in. So you can see here I'm trying to yank at it and it's just not wanting to give at all. I can give it one more quick try here, and then I'm going to switch over to my real suction cup, which is this guy, which you can use for notebooks. And so let me go ahead and get a good suction on this thing. This gives me a lot more leverage and gives me less chance of breaking the screen. But I will tell you that screen is wedged in there, so you want to be really careful when you pull it out. There we go. It comes apart much like the 3GS. You pull it from the bottom towards the top, and all the connectors are on the top right-hand side. Now, one thing that is interesting is that there are all these screws down the sides of the screen, much like the 3GS, which led me to hope that the LCD and the digitizer were separate parts. You will find out that they are not. They are bonded, so you do need to get the same part. So the first thing that's different is there is an EMI shield covering the connectors for the screen. And there's 3 screws in it, and you have to undo that. And I will also state that this video is just kind of my first attempt. I don't go real far on here. I'm going to make another video this afternoon where I'm going to take the screen apart a little bit further and maybe start playing with taking a look at the dock port and pulling out the motherboard. I mean, the good news is you don't need to take any of this stuff out to fix the screen on the iPhone 5. All you need to do is pull this EMI shield and disconnect 3 cables. There are 3 that are connected because you have the LCD, you have the digitizer, and then you have a flex cable that's going to control the front camera, the proximity sensor, and the earpiece speaker. It's all on one flex cable. Okay, so we got that EMI shield out. And now here we're going to use a plastic tool so we don't shock the system. And pop off the 3 connectors. This one here on the right that I'm taking off, putting that one back on is a pain. You really have to work at it to get it in there correctly. Okay, second connector, and then underneath this second connector is our 3rd connector, which is right there. And once we disconnect this, the screen just lifts cleanly away. Okay, so we've got the screen out. Let's put we're going to focus in here on the screen and worry about the other part of the phone here in a second. So a couple of things. One, the home button assembly has its own shield over it. I'm not going to take it off right now. I will in the next video. But it's a completely contained assembly, so no more flex cables for the home button. Down the sides of the screen are 6 screws, much like the iPhone 3GS, which got me to thinking that maybe they use a separate digitizer and LCD, so I'm going to take those off. Also up top here is the earphone speaker, and there's a cover for that, so there's 2 screws on that. We're going to take that one off first. Okay, we're going to lift this part off here. And for anyone who's taken apart an iPhone 4, the earpiece speaker had a little adhesive holding it on. They've gotten rid of all of that on the iPhone 5. It's actually just a self-contained box, much like a loudspeaker would be. It has its own contact points, makes for very easy replacement, which is nice. Now, the only thing about this whole episode that's going to be difficult is the proximity sensor and camera are attached to the front screen. And I'm not going to take them off this time. I kind of look at them here a little bit and play around with them. It's all a single assembly, the front camera as well as the proximity sensor. On my next video, I'm going to apply some heat to it and see if I can get it to release. It looks like it's adhered on, at least where the proximity sensor is. The other thing that I'm going to go and pull off right now is I'm going to go and take out all the screws on the back plate of the LCD. It's a very tight configuration up here on the top of the screen. It has me a little concerned because when you replace it, you're going to have to replace the whole screen at once, and that's a part that, I don't know how hard it's going to be to get out yet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and there's one screw up top. There's a screw, 2 screws down the left side, a screw on the bottom, and 2 screws on the right side. This part is really thin. It's hard to describe how thin it is, but I'd say compared to like an iPhone 4 setup, it's probably 50% thinner. Okay, so now this metal plate here is covering the LCD, and I'm just going to go ahead and lift that off. Now that's the LCD attached to the digitizer, and it is definitely hard attached. Just to be sure, I actually pry at it a little bit here just to see if it wants to come off, but it doesn't. It's definitely on there. I mean, it's all adhered down. I imagine you could probably get a heat gun on it and maybe separate it, but I have a feeling that when you buy parts, they're going to be a bonded part, much like they are with the iPhone 4. So on this video, as far as disassembly goes, that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go with it. I'm going to wait for the next video. I'll do a shorter one, and I'm going to take that camera assembly off, and I'm going to take the home button off, and I will videotape those two things and put those up as well. But my goal here is to figure out what's the easiest way to replace the screens on these, because we fix over 400 iPhones a month, and I'm expecting broken iPhone 5s to start showing up next week. You will see if you go do a search, you'll find out that some people are starting to sell parts for the iPhone 5. They're starting to sell the digitizers by themselves. I wouldn't buy those. I don't think they'll work. So you can see me prying here at the proximity sensor a little bit, but I don't think it's going to work. I think I have to apply heat to it and be careful not to overheat the LCD when I do it, and then it should lift off. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that mid plate back on. And I think that's just an LCD backing plate that just makes the LCD assembly be a little bit more rigid. And it needs to be rigid because when I put this thing back together, getting it back in there just is no fun at all. I mean, it was really, really tight going back in. It almost makes you feel like you're going to break it. I'm playing with the iPhone 5. Again, I mean, I think it's an evolutionary. I mean, this almost should have been the 4S in my opinion. It should have had the 4 and then the 4S. I think this is more evolutionary than revolutionary. It's just, unfortunately, I like Apple products and I fix a lot of them, but I was kind of expecting more out of the iPhone 5 than what I'm seeing. I do like the fact that the screen lifts from the top rather than having to take the entire phone apart. I'm just making sure here that I've got that earphone jack seated correctly, or the earpiece speaker seated correctly here. It just kind of slots right in there, and then you've got the EMI shield that covers it, and then 2 screws hold it back on. Just like in the iPhone 4, most of these screws are all different sizes, so when you take this thing apart, you want to make sure you lay it out absolutely properly. You don't want to get parts mixed up and try and put screws in the wrong position. One of the reasons why is this thing is so tight, the tolerances are minimal in it. So if you've got the wrong screw in there, you could actually break the screen. Okay, a couple of things on the motherboard. That's the vibration motor. They went back to the vibration motor they used on the earlier version iPhone 4s and 3GSs. Up here, that's the rear-facing camera. Right here is the dock port connector and the battery connector, 2 separate covers for those. The box to the right there, that's actually, we think, the loudspeaker, which then gets down into the dock port stuff down here at the bottom, which is all in assembly. And I'll be taking that part later. Okay, fitting the screen back on. You just reverse it. You do the 3 connectors. The first 2 are very, very simple to connect. They just take a second. The third one, you got to kind of line up just right. And I cut part of the video out here, but it took me probably about 3 minutes of fiddling to get that last connector down just right. I assume with, familiarity, it'll get a lot quicker. But it definitely does take a little bit here. Once you get this connector down, you got to remember to put that EMI shield on, which will hold all those cables down. There's 3 screws in that. And it's hard to show on video because you gotta, when you put it on, you gotta kind of angle the screen here to be able to get it to sit right. One thing I can't stress enough is that if you do take this apart and you do not disconnect the battery, make sure you don't hit any of those connectors with metal tweezers or anything. Make sure that you're using a plastic spudger or a plastic pry stick to get those connectors off so that way you don't shock anything. I found that with most Apple products, even when they're off, they are still passing some amount of power across these circuits, especially in the iPads. So if you've taken apart an iPhone 4 and you get in this iPhone 5, it won't feel that much different. It almost just feels like you're taking it apart in backwards what you would for the 4. So it's like you were lifting the glass off the 4 first and then going down, because that's exactly what it would look like. Get this last screw in here. And then after I get the screw in, you can see me put the screen back down. And like I said, I mean, they say these things won't break as easy, and I can see why, because I think that screen sits much further down in. It gives less of a target for the ground to hit. You can see here, it almost feels like you're going to break it. You're pushing so hard to get it to sit in there. You got to seat the top part first, and then you get down the bottom, and it was very, very difficult. A little scary even. You can see I'm pushing it down and getting it to seat all the way in there. And it sits down pretty flush. I mean, there's not much that sticks up. And I'm going to go ahead and put the screws back in it. And the SIM card tray. And this is just a first video for us. If you've seen my other videos, we've done some very good teardown videos on how to, demonstrations of how I repair iPhone 4s, iPad 2s. Our YouTube web channel is Yakety Yak Texas. That's Yakety, YAK Texas, all one word. And our website is yakitupdfw.com. I do repairs. You can mail them in. I also buy and sell used phones and have about 300 phones up there that you can choose from, all with 30-day money-back guarantees. So, we've gotten it fixed. Stay tuned for the next videos. When we get those out, we will be sure to show a little bit more in depth, take the phone down a little bit further each time. It's the only one I have, and I don't have any spare parts, so I'm being careful not to break the phone. And it's booting up now. Boot up time takes about the same as it does on an iPhone 4. And it's live. So, again, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.